Welcome back to In Focus Maine. Glad you're with us. As legislators roll up their sleeves and get back to work, members of the Maine State Chamber of Commerce will be keeping watch, looking out for policies impacting the state's economy. They're looking to build upon growth from 2024. According to the state economist, in the second quarter of last year, Maine's gross domestic product grew 1.7%. The healthcare and real estate industries leading the way. But businesses have had their share of hurdles, a tight labor market and hiring challenges, including elevated housing costs. Joining me now is the president and CEO of the State Chamber of Commerce, Patrick Woodcock. Patrick, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, for viewers who may not know the scope of what your agency does, can you tell us more about its mission and membership?
Well, the Maine State Chamber of Commerce is the largest statewide organization looking to promote economic prosperity for the state. We're an employer-based organization with businesses across the state representing us, and we really bring the voice of businesses before the legislature.
Now, it's a new year, new legislative session. Are there any specific pieces of legislation or agenda items that the Chamber is closely monitoring?
Well, as you noted, one major limiting factor for growing business in Maine is the availability of housing. Simply being able to hire a worker is now challenged by finding a house for that individual. So we do think that that needs to be one of the highest priorities of the legislature. Really unlock housing development, more supply, address the affordability of trying to make the numbers work to owning a home in Maine. It used to be an affordable state, and we've seen some of the highest appreciation of home values in the country in Maine. The way to address that is more housing supply, more construction, more activity for housing starts. We think that comes down to improving local rules, regulations, improving the cost of actually building a house. And we really do think that that needs to be one of the highest priorities of the legislature.
Sure. You know, housing is an issue that we're seeing across the nation right now, and also here in Maine. In addition to the housing issue, what other issues and opportunities do you see that the state's economy is facing as we start this new year?
Well, I think there's a lot of trepidation right now in the state's budget outlook. We'll see a governor's budget proposal that I think is going to be one of the tightest in recent years. We have to pass that budget by the fiscal year's conclusion of June 30th. And I think we're starting to see cautiousness with outlook on revenues, which making the numbers work, we're going to have some really challenging discussions about ensuring that we have a balanced budget. Furthermore, we have a new state paid family medical leave program that the tax kicks off on January 1st. Businesses, all employers will be subject to that. All employees are subject to that. And ultimately, we do think that that law needs a second look. We ultimately think that it should be revised to ensure that the long-term fiscal projections of this trust are sound, that it meets employers and employees' interests, and ultimately is working to provide essential leave, but also not limiting the state's economy.
Let's hone in a little bit more on small businesses, something that the Chamber really provides resources to. What are some of the issues that those small business owners are concerned about across Maine?
It really gets into labor and finding those workers. It's been a challenging period where we trying to find demographic trends have been challenged in the state. We have more deaths than births, and that ultimately constrains a workforce over time. So really starting to think about how can we ensure that more women are participating in the workforce. Elder populations might take on some part-time jobs. How can we ensure that new Americans can be integrated into the workforce as successfully as possible? So ultimately, it's a collective effort for a myriad of populations to ensure that we have the workforce to keep businesses going in the state.
100%. Before I let you go, you have a long resume in the energy field. What opportunities in energy do you see for Maine during this legislative session?
It is a dynamic period. We're watching nationally a lot of movement on data centers, what that means for load, nuclear, small modular reactors. In Maine, there have been some recent announcements for storage deployment, including a long duration storage project in Lincoln, Maine. Uh, I do think that the state has opportunities to increase our storage deployment, and that really can address our seasonality of load, where a lot of demand in the winter, summer, and how to use storage to try to reduce our utilization of the most expensive fuels and imports like liquefied natural gas and oil.
All right, sounds like the state and the chamber has their work cut out for them this year. Patrick Woodcock, the president and CEO of the Maine Chamber of Commerce, thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I want to thank all our guests for being part of today's show. We'd also like to thank you for joining us. I'm Robert Guaderrama. Have a great day. We'll see you next time on In Focus Maine.